everyone. Hi, Happy New Year. Welcome to the very first official episode for the Pearl Tips Talk Show for 2021. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have an amazing guest today, and we're going to be talking about postpartum depression. But before we do, as always, we're going to just say a word of prayer before we get started. I know some people ask me, well, why do you pray before you get started? Here's the reason why. Number one, I'm nervous. That's why I pray. Number two, I pray because I'm also praying for you, the viewer, so that you can just get double blessings. So this is the reason why I do it. So feel free to join me or not. It's totally up to you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another episode, and thank you for giving me the strength and the wisdom and the courage to be here online with our viewers, Lord. I pray for them wherever they are in whatever life stage, whatever situation, Lord. I just pray that you would cover them and give them courage and give them wisdom as they go through their life, Lord. I pray that you would also give them love and show them to the right people, the right resources. I pray that what I say is going to be received, and I pray that I'll be able to communicate them well. I thank you and I praise you for who you are. In your holy name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. So now we have our guest. She's a therapist, entrepreneur, podcast, mom, wife, the whole shebang bang. We have Gunjani. Welcome to the show, Gunjani.
Thank you so much for having me, and you are going to do amazing. And I am so honored to be on your show. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much. So, when we talk about pregnancy, we talk about the good, like bundle of joy, feel nesting. We talk about all these things, but we don't talk about postpartum depression. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and what is postpartum depression.
Wow. It's a very complex topic. And, I recently became a mother. So recently, as in 2.5 years ago, recently. But I'm South Asian. So I grew up I've been practicing as a licensed mental health therapist in the state of Florida and California for I've owned my practice for almost 10 plus years. So over a decade. And, I'm one of some of my specialty happens to be depression, anxiety, addictions, PTSD, trauma, and grief and loss. And so, very heavy, intense things that we don't, as a society, normally tend to talk about. And especially growing up South Asian, there was a lot of stigma associated with mental health. So, mental health, it's like, oh, you only go to therapy if you're crazy. And it's like, no, you go to therapy even if you're not crazy, even, because you're suffering from certain life challenges that you need someone's support with. So, that's why you go to therapy. But, um, long story short, in terms of postpartum depression, even while I was going through my own journey of new motherhood, and in the culture that I grew up in, it was like you said, it was all about, glamorizing pregnancy, woohoo, celebration. It's all about the baby after. And then the mother is sort of like, okay, on the wayside, like, okay, you gave birth, now your job is done, bye bye. And I'm just like, wait, like, so for my personal journey, it was one of those things where I was just like, no, this is not right. Like, I'm going through all these things and I feel so alone. I feel so, I feel like there's been a huge identity shift. There's all this mom guilt. Like, there's all this postpartum stuff that goes on with you that we don't, as a society, normally talk about. So this last year, one of the reasons why, so as I was, trying to figure out what I was going to be when I grew up in terms of the next phase of my practice and my life, and as a mother now, like, okay, I gave birth, but I just don't feel fulfilled anymore. I need to do more. And what can I do in terms of my personal and in terms of my professional life? So I was, trying to find myself, like, tune into my purpose and some of those things in this past year. I also turned 40 on Christmas. So I was like, now that I'm 40, thank you. Now that I'm 40, I need to do something. Like, I need to make a bigger impact. I need to do something in terms of my calling. So a friend of friends of mine, actually, recently, this past July, I want to say she passed away of PPD. She was only 30 and she was a new mom. And it was just like very awakening and eye opening to me because having been through it myself, I almost didn't recognize that I was going through it, even though, I work in it. I teach it, I know about it. But personally, I didn't realize that I was going and somehow affected by it till I actually heard her news and all the after she passed away. And I was like, oh, wow, I just need to take a step back and to really try to do something about this. So I recently founded a group after that, it was called Pregnancy and New Moms Mental Wellness Support Group. But the idea for that was, I was researching online and everything was about like all the groups that I found online was postpartum, like postpartum depression, and very clinical postpartum part of it. They say that 1 in 7 women suffer from postpartum depression, and suicide is like the most leading cause of death in as a part of postpartum journey for women. So I was just very perplexed by that. I was like, wow, this is not okay. I mean, we are talking about it, we are doing enough about it, but being women of color, I feel that we don't do enough. And there's all the statistics that prove it because there is 1 in 7 women, like I said. So, like, let's say CDC did a study, and 10, like, out of 4 million women that give birth, 600,000 women in a given year suffer from it.
Mhm.
And yet we don't hear about it. Isn't
Yeah.
that strange? We do, we don't unless it's someone close to us. So that was all very eye opening to me. And I was like, okay, I can't shut up. I have to do something about this. I have to make sure that there are other women. We put the focus back on the women, we take care of them, because some women, and again, postpartum depression is one of those things which is it varies from women to women.
Mhm.
And it's like a whole range, so it looks very different for different people. So it's very complex, and it's more than baby blues, but it could range for a number of things. So it's like, when we see all the statistics, when we see all these results, I was really like, okay, there has to be something that needs to be done. So I wanted to put the focus back on moms and just support them through this journey, because the fourth trimester, as they call it, or matrescence, is like one of the biggest, hardest things that a woman goes through in her life. And it's like in my mother's generation, it was just like, oh, they were meant to have kids and they had 5 kids. Like it's only my sister and I, but the generational thinking was different than it is for us now. So I just think that now that we know and we have all the statistics and we know all these things, we need to be also able to support women who are going through this, who might not be experiencing severe symptoms, but also might be experiencing some symptoms where they need some help and support through this phase of life.
Absolutely, because like most moms you hear about, maternity leave only lasts so long, and
three
some moms
months. That's
don't
it.
even have
Yeah.
maternity leave or
Yeah.
can't afford to take maternity leave for
Yep.
an extensive period of time,
Yep.
which is mind blowing. You think society, we should all just move to Amsterdam.
Yeah, right? 6 months or 9 months, you get maternity leave. I was like, I almost told my husband that. I was like, hey, we should move to Europe. We'll have like so much time, paid time off, and yet we'd be able to take care of ourselves and the baby. And it was actually be like a good experience as opposed to,
Right.
okay, maternity 3 months. You're trying to figure out so many different things in that first 3 months, because you get all these. It's one thing to get, all this help with which car seat or which baby formula or which, all these baby foods and baby tables and baby chairs and baby clothes. But what about the mom? Like, we
Yeah.
go through so many mental health changes, we go through bodily changes, we go through identity changes. I mean, those are big things. And then when the kid comes, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted, not enough sleep, and just what? What just happened?
So, do you think that different ethnicities experience postpartum depression more than some? Is that
So I was doing research on that as well when I first started, embarking this journey on maternal mental health, because that was not my per se specialty, but depression was. So so studies have shown that people who have suffered, so women who have suffered depression prior to their postpartum journey, they tend to have 30 to 35% more chances of experiencing postpartum depression than if you didn't have any mood disorder prior. So you might still experience it, but it might be exacerbated if you are not aware, if you already had pre-existing condition. With in terms of race, one of the things that I found that there were a number of studies done, but I'll tell you about one particular study that I actually found, and it talked about they had a sample of 13,000 Caucasian women, 13,000 Black women, and 3,000 Latina women, and they found that the race technically didn't. It was the number of women affected were the same from all the races, but the help, like white women were 9% chances of getting help for it, whereas Black women 5% and Latina women 4%. So the because of the stigma associated, and then I was reading other research and other things from and stories, and from Postpartum International Support International. It is one of the organizations that I truly think is an amazing free resource. They have amazing online groups and online support for moms, Black moms, white moms, queer moms. I mean, you
What's
name
that
it.
resource again?
Dads. It's called Postpartum Support International, so PSI. And they have support groups that runs for, I mean, even men suffer from postpartum depression. So, I mean, all kinds of things happen.
And
So,
that's something you definitely don't hear about
oh,
men
absolutely
suffering
not.
from postpartum depression.
Yep, yep,
Um,
yep. I mean, I didn't know about it either, and I hadn't heard about it, but I had read about it here or there, but I didn't really know about it in depth as much as I know now and how it exhibits itself. So, yeah, because it's a big part of a male too, because it's like they have to take care of the baby, they have to take care of the wife, and they have to take care of themselves. So it's like, there that whole juggling system that goes on. But in terms of, and one of the things that I read was that a lot of times in the South Asian communities and the Black community and the Latina community, the women of color, is that, it's like there's so much stigma associated with mental health. And then one of the things that I was reading in one particular study is that, you know, in Black women, it's like the whole thing was that it's the seeking help is perceived to be a sign of weakness. And then in terms of postpartum help, it's like they already are expected to fail in terms of motherhood. So even if they're going through something like this, it's like an added layer of complexity. Like, okay, now I seek help, then people are really going to think that I'm failing because I'm not a good mom. And it's not the
Absolutely.
case. Yeah,
It's definitely not the case at all. And it's exactly
absolutely.
that societal pressure
Yes.
to perform and to not really take care of your mental health. Is postpartum linked to genetics, or is it just kind of something that is experienced?
So in terms of the depression world, I don't remember statistics right off the bat for that, but in terms of the depression, anxiety, and post PTSD, I know that there is 50% chances of genetic predisposition. I read somewhere something about postpartum, but I don't really recall quick off my head. But there is some genetic predisposition to it, and like I was telling you, that if you already had predisposition, that like if you already had predisposition to depression, and then if you are postpartum, then your chances increases, your risk increases with the postpartum diagnosis.
Right.
So and sometimes it's not triggered till postpartum, so it's really hard to tell. I mean, there was a study then where they do, and it's fairly a new study and a new trend that they're noticing, where they studied that there were two genes that were responsible. They took blood from 85 women, so it's not a big sample size. Thus, I didn't want to quote that study, but I mean, they're doing studies to figure out where they draw blood from women who are in the postpartum phase, pregnant women, and then they were noticing changes in the genes, so that they were noticing that there was some changes going on as a part of their genetic disposition. But they are still conducting studies on that, so it's not confirmed. But if you already had pre-existing mood conditions, pre-existing mood disorders, then your chances and the risk increases by more than if you weren't.
And just for our viewers, postpartum is post giving birth.
Yes, postpartum. So perinatal meaning before birth, peri meaning before, natal is birth, so before birth, and postpartum, partum meaning after. So literally after birth is postpartum. So almost like the minute the baby is born and after that.
because you hear the term baby blues
Uh,
more so than postpartum. Is
so
there like a huge difference between the two?
absolutely. So baby blues are something that most women experience for 2 to 3 weeks postpartum, which is right after the birth of the baby. And then the post baby blues symptoms are irritability because your hormones are adjusting. Your body is adjusting to not being pregnant. I mean, not being back to its ovarian cycles and stuff. So there are a lot of changes going on in our body and hormones and moods and biochemical changes in our brain and all that stuff. So yes, the baby blues last for 2 to 3 weeks to almost a month or two. um, Whereas postpartum, it's like it starts, the symptoms are more severe, and they start impairing your relationships with your baby. And psychosis is when, so there's postpartum depression, and then there's postpartum psychosis. So there are two different things. But postpartum depression is inability to not being able to bond with the baby. The psychosis part is where you have thoughts and you can't control them, and it's not your fault that you're thinking that. You're still a good mother
Right.
if you're listening to this. Just want you to know that all these things that happen are not your fault. You're going through a lot of changes in your body, in your brain, in your so many different things are happening within you. So some of the things that you're experiencing is nothing you can do to control it or stop it,
Right.
unfortunately. So postpartum starts after, they say, 3 weeks to a year or until treated, and the symptoms are much more severe. And it affects the baby and the mom if not treated.
So you said it can last from up to a year. Can it last
Mhm. Or
more
until
than that?
treated. I mean, depending on who you talk to. Some people say that it need if you don't treat it, then it'll manifest itself as depression, even as even if the baby is much older and stuff. So the DSM says it's to a year, but some people say it's until you treat it. And sometimes it'll just work itself out. Sometimes you need medical intervention for it to be healed.
And is there medical intervention for mothers who are like nursing or who are
Absolutely. They say that there are all these proven, like Prozac is one of the, and I'm not going to start naming meds because I'm technically not a psychiatrist, so I don't want to give advice on meds, or anything that I say could be considered medical advice.
talk
But
to your
I,
doctor about certain meds?
yes, so
Otherwise,
ask your
you'll be
doctor about it, the exact meds. But in terms of medication, yes, there are absolutely medications that can that have been treated, studied, used for a number of years. And actually, they say that if you're on medications, they're safe for breastfeeding, and safe for breastfeeding and for pregnancy and for the baby. So it's almost as if you take your meds, and it helps you, and it helps to you take the edge off of some of the things that you're feeling, and it's not going to affect the baby. It almost does more harm if you're not on meds than if you are on meds. So there's such a stigma associated with medication. It's like, I'm not crazy, I don't want to take psych drugs. But well, we take drugs for blood pressure, or we take drugs for diabetes. It's the same thing. It's just for your brain, and literally your brain's chemical, it's a chemical imbalance in your brain that is resulting to some of the feelings and the thoughts and the things that you are feeling. So it's absolutely nothing that you can think yourself. A lot of times people or women have this tendency to, I'll just think myself out of this, or I mind over matter, I'll just make myself be so determined. And it's just like you suffer so much more as a result of trying to do that, while you're trying to navigate all these other hats
man,
that
this
you're
is
juggling with.
amazing information, and I hope that it's helping someone out here. Because another reason why I do these segments, these episodes, is because I want to learn as well. So
Yeah.
this is some good things to keep in the back of my mind
Yeah.
as I go through life. So this is
And you're
really
about to have your private practice, and you do your thing someday. So, yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. So what are some tips that we can kind of help loved ones or like fathers or just to kind of just see if they're looking at their loved one mom who gave birth? What are some tips that they can look for to kind of, when is it to get help? When do they intervene?
So I normally tell people that, one of the biggest things that helps one get through their phase, and then everybody's journeys look different. And I want to be very clear about that. Everybody's postpartum depression looks different for them. It's like just because your friend or your loved ones or your sister or whoever that you're connected to on Facebook went through it, their journey might be quite different than yours. And then there are a lot of people who are also going through it, so you might be able to find support in that. So one of the things that helps while you're going through this phase is that, seek support. I think one of the biggest things that women experience in this phase, and I did that, like I literally switched myself off of social media. I didn't want anything to do with anybody because I thought I was the only one going through this, and my friends were in different phases of their, childbirth and, their um, parenting life. So I just thought I was the only one going through it. And if I told people how I was feeling, that I would be perceived weak and all those things, even being in the profession. So, it's amazing how this it can have postpartum depression can have a profound effect on just even your values and your belief system sometimes, I think. So there's tons of help out there, and one of the best way to get through this is just making sure that you are educated about the mental. There's all this. So I'm on, social media on IG, more so on IG than Facebook. I have my Facebook group that I created for mental health wellness of pregnant women. But on IG, there are all these accounts. Even on Facebook, there are all these support groups that are out there, like Postpartum Support International that I was telling you about. They run all these virtual meetings for dads, for moms, for, women of color, like all this free help out there. Like for me, one of the biggest things was I was so like a perfectionist and obsessed, like my baby schedule and my eating and this and that and sleep. Like I even stopped going out of the house because I was like, oh my god, I have to get like 45 minutes to get the diaper bag ready. I might as well just stay at home. This is too much work, and this was pre-COVID. So I was just like, oh, it was just so tiring and just all of that, for me. So again, different people's journeys look different. So it's like if it starts to impair you and you continue to feel this for extended periods of time, I really think that at some point you need to get help from your PCP. And one of the things with psych meds too, and not that I'm pushing meds on people, everybody has their values and ideas around meds, but knowing that there is help, and if you take it, you're going to do yourself more good than more harm, you and your baby and your family. And then the second is consult your OBGYN, consult your PCP. Sometimes some meds don't work. Like for my podcast, one of my third or and fourth episode was a woman who was describing her postpartum journey. So there is all this material out there, like people can tune into places like you who are new, who don't know, who want to be educated, who want to know what is to come, like on what to expect, when to expect book. It's like they didn't really say anything about postpartum. They didn't say anything about anything mental wellness. And I wish that they did, because I would be prepared and I would know what to expect. Worst case scenario, like, hey, you know what? These are the things we need to look for, if something happens. Because so many women today, I feel so bad because it's like more people die of suicide than, that's like the number one complication in postpartum. So it's like we can totally help women, through this journey. So seeking help, seeking support, plugging into podcasts, plugging into books that are related to postpartum, plugging into, like PSI and places where that there are actual support groups. Facebook has so many support groups for postpartum. IG has so many. Like I had on my account, on my IG pregnant and new moms tribe, I have all these women who are psychologists, who are therapists, who are OBGYNs. They specialize in maternal mental health. And, it's just they're there for resource. They are there to help. They want to help. They want to support you. They want to, they want you to not go through this alone. So,
And for all the resources that we are naming, they will be in the description. So if you guys aren't catching them, don't worry. I've got them down so that you guys can tune in and check them out.
yes.
And man, that's a lot. Like that you're not alone. I think that's the biggest takeaway
Yeah.
from this is that you're not alone, and these symptoms are not normal.
Yes.
Just know that it's not you. It's literally it's just chemistry. It's just chemicals in your brain. Like
Yep.
there's nothing
Yep.
that you can do or can't do. That
Yeah.
cause this. I think that's a huge takeaway. Are there any particular like symptoms that could kind of like raise a red flag that we can kind of tell people, okay, maybe look out for these type of symptoms, look out for this type of behavior, so that way, because some moms might be going through this and they don't even know because they've been going through it for so long.
So one of the biggest things, like if you are on my IG, G Patel Counseling, there's some stuff that I have on postpartum. But some of the things that, like some of the red flags to sort of look for is, a lot of times women will not feel like themselves, and they'll tell their loved one they don't feel like themselves. They feel that there's something off. They feel like they're a burden. They all their some of their trauma resurfaces, and they have a hard time coping with that trauma, and they will tell their loved ones that, hey, something is off, I just don't feel like myself. Like I've spoken to a number of different women who have, almost been saved by their loved ones as from suicide because they were admitted. And then a lot of women feel like, oh, my baby is going to be taken away. No, but if you are not admitted, or if your loved ones don't know how to support you through those times, then we might just lose you. And a lot of times we lose our loved ones as a result of that, because we don't know when to intervene and when is the right time and what to do. And I've known a number of women who have been admitted to psych ward as a result of these suicidal thoughts and stuff. And sometimes it depends. It's like, and most of them have said, 99% of them have said that, you know what, it didn't feel the greatest at the time, but now I'm so glad that I'm actually talking about it, I'm healed from it, and I'm actually here to tell you my story and share this experience with you. Otherwise, there was almost a chance I didn't make it, and I just didn't feel like myself. So a lot of women just feel like a burden. They feel lonely. They just want to isolate themselves. They beat themselves up over not wanting to be able to connect to their children. It's not that they don't want to connect to their children, but it's the brain chemistry again that keeps you from wanting to bond to one of your, to your child. Some of the other things we see is changes in sleep and diet, appetite, which is also normal after pregnancy. But if it continues for almost 6 months or 7 months, or even after a month or so, then I would say that start watching. Like there is increase in irritability. There is all these other symptoms that happen as a result of postpartum. So definitely do watch out for that.
So communication is also the key, just
Yes.
telling how you feel. And I think for the loved one standpoint, I think it's just creating a safe space to where the mother or the father feels comfortable
Yes.
to say, hey, this, I don't feel right here, something's off. Let's go talk to a professional. Let's go talk to someone.
Thank
Let's
you
start
so
doing
much.
things.
Yep. You're
Maybe
so right,
uh,
because most of the time we don't do that. Most of the time, the dialogue is, just get over it. It'll be fine. You just gave birth. It'll be fine. No, sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes, and just being empathetic and listening, like you said, and just being there, like, okay, can I? Because sometimes people don't want their problem solved when they're going through this. They just want to be heard. They just want to know that someone is there to listen to them without unsolicited advice, just being there, being able to listen and saying, I can help you research a professional. Let's find you someone if you want. I'm just here to listen. I'm here to just help. Whatever it is, that if you just tell them that you're here to help and you're here to listen, it's a big deal. Instead of minimizing and sympathizing and just saying, well, at least you have a baby, or at least now, you're, instead of at least, or instead of it'll be fine, or you'll be over it, or you'll get over it. I think the dialogue that we as a society should be using is, I'm here for you. And checking up on someone, as in, hey, you know what, you're going through a hard time. Can I come over and do your laundry? Or can I bring you some food so you can rest? Or can I watch the baby so you can have some time for you? Have you been taking some time for you? Because one of the biggest things that we do in the first few years of babies' lives is we are so consumed with the baby that there is no self-care, and we feel guilty for taking care of ourselves or wanting 5 minutes for ourselves. So one of the biggest things is, I can watch your child while you're falling asleep, or I can come over and help you in any way, do your laundry, cook you food. And if you ask a mom and she says, I'm fine, ask again, because a lot of times they're not.
right, because they're trying to do it all, and it's crazy Man, because like society puts this pressure on women that they have to keep doing, doing, doing,
Yeah.
and they have to perform and have to take care of everything. And it's just like you have another life to take care of, but you also have yourself to take care of.
Yes.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
'Cause, and I remember in my culture, I'm from Trinidad, so my grandma, every time a baby was born in the family, like she'll go stay with them for a couple of months or however long.
Yeah.
And I remember when my little brother was born, my grandma stayed with us for years, and it was so
Ooh.
great to have her. It's so great, to
Yes.
help out
Yes.
and stuff. So it's sad that we don't really have that because we're so spread out. Everyone's in
Yes.
different
Yes.
states, different
Yes.
countries. But there are doulas. I'm researching that and finding out about
Yes.
that, and that's a really great resource that moms and families can use are doulas.
Oh gosh, yeah. And on our group, we're very big on the whole concept of doula because they are, and I have an amazing person and a friend almost now. I've interviewed her for my podcast, and I can share her information with you. But she's an amazing mom and a doula and an amazing educator in terms of what that experience is like. Because sometimes, yeah, you're right, we do feel alone, and we don't have anybody experience who just knows her job is to focus on the mom and what the mom needs and what the mom wants and advocate for her through that birthing period. Because a lot of times when you're going through that experience, you don't want to, there's so many things, the nurses, the doctor, the hospital, the oh my goodness, there's so much circus around that sometimes you just are so exhausted from this experience that you just want someone speaking up for you. And yeah, sometimes you have your partner, but having a doula who specializes in it and that's all she does, it's like, that support is invaluable. So yes, I would totally encourage women to look into doulas.
Yeah, because they are. I'm researching more and more on it. So a lot of insurance companies now are
Yeah.
adding them onto their coverage and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really like I'm really impressed that this is coming about, and I'm really excited about it for when I'm ready to begin
Yes.
that career to need
Yes. Yes.
resources. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
amazing. Um, uh, go,
Gunjani.
I was practicing. It was on tip of my
All
tongue.
good.
Tiffany, is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers, or any other tips that you just want to leave them with, little nuggets, so that they would be able to feel empowered?
Yes. One of the, then, to me, it's like when we talk about some of these things and we normalize mental health, we empower people who are going through it and let them know that it's okay to speak about it too. One of the biggest things that I want moms to have and to know through this experience is that, there are all these range of emotions you're going to be feeling, such as there's a concept called postpartum anxiety, there's a concept called postpartum rage. I mean, you find yourself in extreme amounts of anger and you're just like, oh my God, what? This is not me. I'm turning into this monster. Who am I? So you're going through a lot of your identity changes, a lot of your emotions and things that were um, unresolved as a child or unresolved in your life tend to surface when you have a child. So a lot of these things come up and it's almost like a birthing process for us as it is for our child. So if you find yourself in all these uncomfortable, excruciatingly painful emotional situations, just know that don't feel alone and don't go through it alone. You don't absolutely have to suffer through this alone. There's a whole concept of mom guilt. There's a whole concept of postpartum obsessive disorder. I mean, there is literally postpartum everything available out there, and we all go through a range of these things through this journey of the first 3 years of the baby's life. So know that you're not abnormal for feeling this way, and it's okay that you're going through this, but there is hope and there is help out there. It doesn't last forever and it will not continue forever, but just know that you don't have to go through it alone. There's all this help, support group, experts, people, coaches, people who are, all this free information that is there. Just tap into it so that you know what your situation is, you can reflect on it, you can take time for yourself. And more than anything, self-care is not selfish. So just know that if you are pouring out of an empty bucket, then you're doing your child, your family, and yourself a disservice. Instead, if you just take 5 minutes, to yourself, like give the baby to the partner or somebody else or something while they're sleeping, Just take 5 minutes to yourself, doing something that you enjoy, doing something, that you love for yourself. So if you're whole and if you're filled, then you can give a lot more present and be more there for your child. But if you're running on empty, then it's just a mess all around the place, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to encourage moms to feel free to reach out on all of these resources that I will put in the description box, and also to the loved one and to the partners, just keep an open ear and open heart, and just be there for your partner as best as you can. And if not, there are plenty of mental health resources.
Mm,
Just Google.
yeah.
You can start
Yep.
there, type in something, and you'll be able, a lot of things will be able to pop up. I just
Yep.
want to encourage you guys and let you guys know that this year is a new year, a new day. Every day is a new day, and
Yep.
you can have a chance to start afresh. It's not going
Absolutely.
to be like this all the time,
Yep.
24/7. So I just
Yep.
want to encourage you in that. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. And remember, you're worth way more than pearls. Take care,
Aw,
everyone. Thank you so much, Gunjani.
thank you.